It's Monday, the 3rd of May, 2021. Welcome to the week's premiere edition of the Good Morning Africa, live on iAfrica TV. And once again, wherever you are, thank you so very much for joining us this morning. And of course, being the 3rd of May, it's World Freedom, of course, Media Freedom Day or Press Freedom Day. So we are going to discuss about that, of course, extensively in today's edition, but that will be later in the program. We're going to, of course, look at the state of journalism and journalists in the Gambia. So, of course, you can wait for that later on. Of course, we are also going to discuss on some very other pertinent issues in the country. But once again, wherever you are, thank you so very much for joining us again. Like I said, it's Monday, and we are very much happy to be back to start another week with you. Of course, as you know, from Monday to Friday, we are here at this time on every morning to bring you the Good Morning Africa program. And thank you for coming along. su ko defee mbokk yi ñu ngi leen di nuyu beneen yoon fii ci Africa TV ñu waat mbégte dellusiwaat beneen yoon comme ni ñu ko defee saa su ne bu waxtu bi jotee xam ngeen de mbégte lay doon saa su ne ñu ñëw ñu ànd ak yéen ci li nga xamante ne mooy ci jotaay bi bu waxtu bi jotee fi ngeen mënta nekk nag ci biir réew mi ba ci biti réew ñu ngi leen di jaajëfal bu baax. waaye tamit ci safo bi ak ci kóolute bi ci ni ngeen àndee ak ñun saa su ne bu waxtu bi jotee ñu ñëw ñu digtal leen suñu ay xibaar waaye tamit waxtaan li nga xamante ne mooy xew-xew ci biir réew mi tolluwaay yi ci réew mi waaye tamit xam ngeen ne lépp li nga xamante ne toll nañ ci ni ci indi yaatal tey nag mu nekk ñetti fan ci weeri mai 2021 mu nekk bés bu am solo ci taskati xibaar yi mu nekk bés bi nga xamante ne dañ ko teg ci aduna bi pour ñu def ci taxaw seetlu ci wàllu média wala media tamit ñu cee yëngu seen nekkin ak doxalin nu mel ci aduna si waaye tamit fii ci réew mi nañ ci def taxaw seetlu bu baax seet yan taxawaay moo ci am ci fànn yu yaatu loolu ci kanam tuuti nañ ci yaatal waxtaan bu baax ak suñuy gante ci jotaay bi nañ tamit addu ci leneen ci programme bi nañ wax ci wàllum li nga xamante ne mooy kon ni ma ko waxee ci xew-xew ci biir réew mi nañ xuus dem ci bitim réew seet tamit li fa xew of course ci India xam ngeen jamono ji mbas mi mu ngi faa def lu doy waar nañ ci indi yaatal wax tamit ci Myanmar protest bi ak yu mel noonu loolu yëpp nañ ci ñëw ak ay yeneen xibaar ci biir réew mi incha allah jàpp leen ni daal dana nekkati programme bu am solo ñu jaajëfalaat leen beneen yoon ci ni ngeen ànd ak ñun ci jotaay. Well, once again, thank you for joining us, and we start with our first story this morning. Now, concerned Muslims who wear the hijab have reacted to crimes of people who disguise as pious people under the cover of the hijab. In this vox pop at the Serekunda market, several young ladies emphasized the wearing of veil as a religious requirement, and that whoever is represent this image will solely be exposed. And here's more details of that in this report by Binta Fatih.
Hijab wearing is one of the most common identity of female Muslims in the Gambia, and it cuts across the population, especially during the month of Ramadan. Despite its religious significance, the dress code is being used in certain instances by criminals in disguise of good Muslims to commit crimes such as theft. Walking along the streets of the Serekunda market, I asked the view of some young women about the recent wave of theft allegations on supposedly disguised members of the society under the cover of the hijab.
Allah said in the Quran, there will be people who would dress like Muslims when they are not Muslims. They just do evil just to defame Islam. This is bad as it tarnishes the image of those putting on the hijab. Moreover, it is going to discourage others who might want to put on the hijab because they will think that people will call them thieves at the market. So I will advise them to stop it because our image will be tarnished at the end. The issue makes me sad because people now point at us when we put on the nikah. They would say, these are the people who steal. The person puts on the nikah just to use us and blame us. It really makes us sad. Maybe the person is not even a Muslim. She just used the hijab just to go and steal. That's why they have been exposed. You know, sometimes some of them are not hijab. They just put it on to do evil things. Look at it. It's not nice. Because there are people doing hijab for the sake of Allah. For others, they are just doing it just for bad things. Because the veil is big. Even if you steal something, people will not know it.
Their reaction followed cases in which the full body covering is misrepresented by thieves. some of who were allegedly exposed by CCTV cameras in a shop at the Serekunda market. News of these cases trending on the social media has brought shame to those who wear the hijab only on religious grounds. One of them had this way to react.
I'm short of words because someone who covered her body for the sake of Allah to turn and steal, that is not good. Nobody should do that. They just tarnishing the image of those who put on the veil and the religion.
In the Gambia, women who cover themselves in hijab are respected as they are considered pious and honest people. They are models in society who anyone can entrust responsibility without any need for fear of disappointment. However, with the increase in crimes in the market and perpetrators being women in hijab, the credibility of women who put on the hijab is being tainted, paving a reason for the pointing of the wrong fingers at them. For iAfrica TV News, I am Binta Fati.
All right, very well. Of course, Binta Fati reporting there has some women, of course, reacted to a case of criminals in discourse of the hijab. Well, of course, you had their views on that. Seemingly, they are not happy at all as to what has been reported or has been circulating on social media with some women wearing hijab and, of course, doing something else different, which contradict towards what the hijab people that wearing the hijab is expected to do. But whatever. That's it. Of course, we will allow you also to have your own view there on that report there filed in by Binta Fati. We will move on and cross borders quickly and then come back later now to some of the other things happening in the country. But for now, at least 7 people were killed in Myanmar during protests on Sunday. Protesters could be seen marching down the street of Yangon as strikes continue across Myanmar for more than 3 months after the military junta seized power. Here's more details of that in this report.
Myanmar security forces opened fire on some of the biggest protests against military rule in days, killing 7 people 3 months after a coup plunged the country into crisis. The protests, after a spell of dwindling crowds and what appeared to be more restrained by the security forces, were coordinated with demonstrations in Myanmar communities around the world to mark what organizers call the global Myanmar Spring Revolution. Demonstrators were chanting "Release our leaders immediately" and "Release all detainees immediately" before running away upon the arrival of the security forces. Protesters are staying in short valleys to avoid the military crackdown, but several people have reportedly been arrested. The death toll for people killed in the country's anti-coup protests has now topped 700, according to the Assistance Association for Political Prisoners organization. The junta, however, only acknowledged 248 casualties. Explosions have rocked Myanmar's largest city of Yangon as protesters held flash marches for democracy and overnight candlelit vigils, defying a brutal military leadership that has held onto power for the 3 bloody months. The country has been in turmoil since the military disposed civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi in February, bring an abrupt end to Myanmar's short-lived experiment with democracy. The army staged a coup alleged fraud during the last legislative elections in November 2020. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Mariama Cham.
All right, from the report there by Mariam Cham on the situation in Myanmar, where the people are not relenting in their efforts to call for democracy, but the military leaders are seemingly not listening at all as they persist and still remain in power. Now, from Myanmar, we head straight to India and, of course, report on the COVID-19 devastating situation in the country. Now, workers were sent transporting bodies of patients who died of COVID-19 in a mass cremation site in Delhi on Saturday. The founder of the organization that is helping to facilitate the cremation of the patient said he has never seen such a large number of corpses in his life. Now, relatives of those being cremated could be seen wiping and mourning their loved ones for whom they did not get a chance to hold a proper funeral. Fatma Kasim has more of that in this report.
COVID-19 continues to run rampant in India as the country's healthcare system reaching breaking point and new daily infection records are being broken almost daily. The country has registered more than 19 million cases of coronavirus with more than 212,000 deaths with the disease, according to data compiled by Johns Hopkins University. Jitendra Singh Shanti, founder of the organization Sahid Bangat Singh Sawal Dal that is helping to facilitate cremation for COVID-19 patients, said he has been part of many disaster rescues in the past but has never seen such a number of corpses before.
I
have been part of many disaster rescue in the past, in Kashmir, Uttarakhand, Nepal, and other places. But such a large number of families and relatives of corpses, I have never seen anywhere.
Indian hospital, morgues and crematoriums have been overwhelmed as the country has reported more than 300,000 daily cases for more than 10 days straight. Many families have been left on their own to scramble for medicine and oxygen. Singh said now that their country is facing big calamity, this is the time for them to show loyalty to the nation as it is now or never. He questioned if they cannot work now for their country, then when are they going to work?
There is no difficulty in doing this job. If we can't do it for our country, when are we going to work? Our country is facing big calamity, so there is no difficulty with this job. We are working from our hearts. Till the end of COVID-19, we will continue doing this work, even if we have to lose our lives.
He said during the last year's COVID-19 pandemic, they had to perform last rites for over 900 bodies, in which his entire family was COVID positive, including himself. India's new coronavirus cases dipped marginally on Sunday, but deaths due to the infection jumped by a record 3,689, with one more state going into lockdown as the nation's quirky healthcare system is unable to cope with a massive caseload. Authorities reported 392,488 new cases in the previous 24 hours to push total cases to 19.56 million so far. The virus has killed more than 215,444 people. Nearly 10 Indian states and union territories have imposed some form of restriction, even as the federal government remains reluctant to impose a national lockdown. Other states have either imposed night curfews or weekend lockdowns. For iAfrica News, I am Fatoumata Kasim.
All right, more people are still losing their lives due to COVID-19 in India as the world stands in solidarity with the Asian nation. It's indeed has been quite a very difficult moment for India over the past couple of weeks or so. Many people have been, dying, and of course others are also been infected with the virus. But I mean, the world are sending helping hand. More medication have been sent to India to help contain the situation as it continues to be a huge challenge. The healthcare system, or the country's healthcare system, seemingly crippling down to to its lowest ever. Now, from that report there in Myanmar and in India, we will, of course, report now on the World Freedom Day. I said it earlier at the beginning, it's May 3rd, and of course that means a lot to some of us on the media, or should I say everyone who speaks on, or talks or writes on the media. Now, the High Representative on behalf of the EU on Sunday released a declaration on the World Press Freedom Day. Every year, the May 3rd the 3rd of May is dedicated for the celebration of the fundamental principles of press freedom and to evaluate press freedom around the world. Well, journalists use the opportunity to defend the media from attacks on their independence and to pay tribute to colleagues who have lost their lives in the exercise of their profession. And here is more of that in this report.
World Press Freedom Day was established by the General Assembly of the United Nations in December 1993 as an outgrowth of the seminar on promoting independent and pluralistic African press. The seminar took place in Namibia in 1991 and led to the adoption of the Windhoek Declaration on promoting independent and pluralistic media. The release said at a time when independent and free media reporting is more essential than ever, press freedom continues to be under threat. According to the UNESCO Observatory, 76 journalists have been killed since 2020, while many more are arrested, harassed, or threatened worldwide. Of particular concern is gender-based violence targeting women journalists.
At a time when independent and free media reporting is more essential than ever, press freedom continues to be under threat. Journalists continue to experience harsh working conditions with increased financial and political pressure, surveillances, arbitrary prison sentences, or violence for doing their work. According to the UNESCO Observatory, 76 journalists were killed since 2020, while many more were arrested, harassed, or threatened worldwide. One particular concern is gender-based violence targeting women journalists. Press freedom is a fundamental value for the European Union, underpinned by many recent initiatives. Media freedom and the safety of journalists are key priorities of the new Human Rights and Democracy Action Plan and of the European Democracy Action Plan. In 2020, more than 400 journalists benefited from the European Union Mechanism for Protection of Human Rights Defenders, while the EU took important actions to support journalists, independent media, and the fight against disinformation in the context of the pandemic in many regions.
According to the release, the EU is among those who condemn on several occasions the intimidation and harassment of journalists around the world.
The EU condemned on several occasions the intimidation and harassment that independent journalists suffer in countries around the world. The EU, including through its Special Representative for Human Rights, has continued to engage with persecuted independent journalists and intervene in support of detained journalists and bloggers. EU delegations are the voice of the EU on the ground. They have closely monitored court proceedings against journalists, spoken out against the repression of human rights defenders and media workers, and raised concerns with national authorities over the proposed communication, media, information, and broadcasting legislation.
The declaration further stated that the European Union is determined to do more in holding the major platforms accountable to make their system fairer, safer, and more transparent.
The EU is determined to do more in Europe and abroad. The EU will continue coordinating with international organizations and mechanisms and pioneer new approaches. One example is the European Commission's proposal for Digital Services Act, aimed at holding the major platforms accountable to make their systems fairer, safer, and more transparent. We will also continue our action to continue disinformation and seek with all partners effective means to support sustainable business models for independent media.
Freedom of the press is a cornerstone of democratic society, which can thrive only if citizens have access to reliable information and can make informed choices. Press freedom means security for all. Article 19 of the 1948 Universal Declaration on Human Rights guarantees the right to freedom of opinion and expression, which includes the right to hold opinions, to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. For iAfrica News, I am Fatoumata Kasim.
The European Union High Representative there issued a declaration on the World Press Freedom Day. Of course, it's a very important day for us journalists. And of course, talking about that, we would be, of course, staying with that subject because May 3rd each year is set aside to commemorate World Press Freedom Day, as you just heard. The day also provide the opportunity for journalists to raise awareness of the significance of press freedom and remind governments of their duties to respect and support the right of freedom of expression. Now, this year's theme, information as a public, of course, as a public good, serves as a call for to affirm the importance of, cherishing information as a public good. However, in the Gambia Press Union has chosen a local theme. Safety of journalists is imperative for credibility of elections. The local team, according to the GPU, is chosen in the view of the increasing safety and security threat to journalists and media houses in the Gambia ahead of the December 2021 presidential elections. And for that, I am glad to say Joining me this morning to discuss more on that is the GPU, that's the Gambia Press Union's Vice President, Mohamed MS Ba. And we would want to have a wide discussion extensively on this subject. Of course, the state of journalism and journalists in the Gambia, especially for the past 4 years since the change of the previous government. su ko defee rek mbokk yi comme ni ngeen ko gisee noonu nañ ci ñëw léegi ñu waxtaan ci wàllum li nga xamante ne mooy lu am solo tasum xibaar ndax bés bi bési taskati xibaar yi la ak tamit seen liggéey bi seen doxalin ak yu mel noonu ci loolu lañ bëgg a ñëw waxtaan ci ndax tamit fii ci réew mi am na li nga xamante ne lu bari liñ ci war a mun a waxtaan ñu am mbégte na dalal ki nga xamante ne mooy vice président bu Gambia Press Union moom mi nga xamante ne moom moo topp ci président bi Mohamed MS Ba ñu war a waxtaan ak moom ci loolu ak yeneen fànn waxtaan bi nañ ko yaatal nañ ko def comme niñ koy defee jaxas baxas yëf yi ci anglais ak tamit ci olof bot nañ ko dooree ak li nga xamante ne mooy ci kàllaama nasaraan su ko defee ñu ñëw nag ñu yaatal. Well, MS, as he is fondly called, good morning and thank you very much for joining us.
It's definitely a pleasure to be here and having me.
All right. Of course, we are very much happy also to have you. And like I said, he's the vice president of the Gambia Press Union, the umbrella body of journalists in this country. May 3rd is a very important day, I know, at your level also as the GPU. But tell us about, the significance of this day for journalists and for journalism especially, also, or let's say in general, in the Gambia, at the level of the Gambia Press Union.
All right. Thank you very much. This is a day we commemorate, we reflect, we also look into issues of journalists and how they work and what are some of the obstacles, what are some of the challenges. And also to look at our fallen heroes who has fallen during their line of duties as journalists, who are attacked and then killed, because we know that they're heroes, obviously. Because if you look at journalism, it's a service to the people. It's to ensure that, public officials, elected representatives, are hold accountable to the people. And they serve as voices to the voiceless. They also create bigger platforms to ensure that, people have voice. People's plight are put out. So these are people that are seen as enemies in most of the places, most countries, and mainly by government, and state apparatus.
The people in power.
Exactly, people in power. People who should even embrace, those realities, obviously. But they are the ones that perpetrate and kill journalists, politicians, just people in power.
Absolutely.
People who have influence over, probably, over power or whatever.
Which is quite unfortunate.
It is, obviously, it is unfortunate. So this day is very significant. It's important also to note that since 1991, when it was declared as a World Press Freedom Day by the United Nations General Assembly, since then, at least now you can say journalists have bigger platform to reflect in the whole world, just to look at issues that affect them.
All right.
Yeah.
This is a moment to look back, and of course, and also maybe assess moving forward as well. Now, of course, let's come back on the state of the Gambia, the context. We all know where we are coming from and to where we are today. As the vice president of the GPU, what do you tell us the state of journalism or journalists in this country as we speak?
Yeah, we've seen, to be quite frank, we've seen certain changes when it comes to the work of journalists. Probably the space is there now because it is a transitioning from autocratic to a democratic dispensation. And then we've seen that, obviously, the space is there. Now you can see more current affair issues discussed, and then people also speak their mind. Journalists also do their work. It's more easier. And also looking at the previous government and now, you can see differences.
Yeah. There's been more
yeah,
media
exactly,
freedom.
media freedom, you know, and also even the context of the, like the global index, the rating, you know, now Gambia is 85. It has at least improved a bit from those previous years, you know, out of 180 countries. So you can see, you know, there are some improvement and many radio stations, TV, you can see you have your license, iAfrica. At least you can also discuss current issues, current affairs without, you know, thinking of being arrested. But despite those things, we have challenges.
Yes.
Still.
Before we get to the challenges, I was going to ask what role the GPU has played to get some of the successes and achievements that you have just talked about.
Of course, GPU has been the champion to press freedom. GPU has been, you know, you know that even during the Jammeh regime, GPU will stand for journalists. You know, GPU has, you know, helped a lot of journalists even before the courts. GPU has also challenged government on certain issues, laws that are unconstitutional. You know, also always engaging government, even the former government, telling them that they have to, you know, advocate, or they have to create space for press freedom. So, which is important, and we are not relenting over this. And GPU also has supported a lot. GPU. We cannot say all what GPU has done, but a lot of, exactly, and even capacity building is part of journalists knowing more on their work and also being exposed to certain things that will help journalists to work effectively and efficiently and also promote press freedom as well.
All right, very well. That's quite important. Now, we're just getting into the challenges, of course. Yeah, there has been some improvement and positives in here. There, you were saying, of course, there are challenges.
Of course.
Yeah, so let's discuss about now. What are some of the concerns that GPU would want to look at and say, you know, this, we have done a bit, we have tried, we have worked all this while to have more press freedom in this country, but still there is more to be done. And what are some of those areas that you are still concerned of?
Yes, for the past 4 years, GPU has recorded 13 abuse on journalists, physical, verbal abuse. You know, we've recorded 13 for the past 4 years. 13, it means 13 journalists were abused.
And that means a lot.
Of course, it is a huge number. One could at least say, okay, we are having a democratic dispensation, but now why the abuse? And then guess what? The abuse is done by, you know, political party supporters and even the presidential supporters. We've seen journalists who were abused, you know, on during their war line of duties when they were covering the Meet the People store. I could remember, I think, last year, year before last, in 2018. I think last year also there was some kind of abuse. And even recently, you know, the Yankuba Jallow abuse in the court, you know, by state apparatus, state agents. So I think still now there is an improvement. There is a challenge rather. There is a huge challenge, you know, because 13 abuse. We are definitely expecting that it would have been zero for the past 4 years as a transition, but it's unfortunate. And these are people who are in power, people who have influence. It's either them or their supporters that are doing that. We've seen a politician, you know, who triggered an abuse, you know, against journalists. So I think these are definitely sad stories. And then GPU is definitely, anytime there is an abuse, GPU will remind government and then also condemn it strongly. So telling government that this is not the promise that we yearn from you. This is not what you've said. You've said that press is free from now on. And then even you could recall the statement of President Barrow during his inauguration at the stadium, you know, on the 18th of February, you know. And then he said it clear, press, you're free from now on. So, but now, why are we not having that freedom? Why is it that we are going through abuse, you know, under this, you know, new dispensation despite promises made? So I think it's definitely
okay. That's great. Before we, I know we also, like I said, we'll discuss in the local language. But before we do, I want us to look at what are the plans of the celebration at the level of the GPU this year, and also on the local team as well, which I believe is very, very important. But then part of the efforts also the GPU have done, I want to believe, is to make sure some of the laws that many times as draconian laws are no more in our books, but to some there are still some laws that resist or limit the works of the journalists.
Of course.
How concerned is the GP also about that, and what are the efforts that the union is doing to make sure that you still keep on pushing to make sure that those laws and concerns that journalists have are no more in our laws?
Yeah, if you look at the laws, we have even colonial laws. Could you imagine that are retiring press freedom? If you look at the Official Secret Act, which is now today 99 years,
wow.
and next year a century, still we're having those laws in the Gambia. Could you imagine? It was enacted in 1922, the Official Secret Act, which is deterring public officials from giving out information. And then there are laws enacted in 1933 in the Criminal Code.
Wow.
Those laws are still there.
Older than Gambia's independence.
That's what I'm saying. Could you imagine? Those are colonial laws. They are still existing. We have the Telegraph Act. The Telegraph Act, which is also trying to impede certain work of journalists.
Yeah, maybe,
we have also probably the GRTS Act, which is also not creating that divergent and dissenting views, because GRTS would have been a public broadcasting than a state broadcasting. You understand? So these are obviously things that are there, laws that are there. But GPU, through their advocacy, has initiated a coalition called the Civil Society Coalition on Access to Information.
And one may assume that these laws are not changed because for the simple fact that they are in the interest of the people that are in power, I guess.
That's it. That is what we've seen. We know, obviously, during the colonial era, there was no equity.
Yeah.
So these are laws that were there to guard the media. And why do you still have the laws? You understand? So these are problems that we're facing, on a daily basis. And GPU has been championing this. GPU even, sued government to court, on certain laws.
Yeah.
Looking at the sedition law, and then which was declared unconstitutional.
Yeah.
It was decriminalized
yeah.
because it was criminal.
Yeah, absolutely.
On false information. If they charge you false information, meaning you can be, it's a serious offense.
Absolutely.
And then the Information Communication Act, which was just enacted, if I could vividly remember, the past dispensation.
Yeah.
It's still there. These are laws that GPU has been saying, hey, government, this is unconstitutional. Why should you put regressive laws? Why should you put aggressive laws against journalists? And then obviously, these are things that deter even public officials. Accessing information is a problem. Now, the GPU has initiated this advocacy, and now it is at the highest stage. And then through the AG chambers, the bill was tabled in 2019 before the National Assembly. And then it was hanging, dragging. One could expect the National Assembly to protect the welfare of its citizens.
Yeah.
It's not only for journalists, but for citizens to access information, for citizens to know how this government is spending their tax, for citizens to know what are some of the policies and programs that government is bringing towards addressing their needs and aspirations. Yeah. So we've seen the problems in the Gambia.
And from 2019 to 2021, the bill is still?
It's still hanging. It went through a lot of stages. But now to the committee stage, I know according to during my engagement with the National Assembly, that is the select committee responsible there, Deputy Chair, Honorable Mo, he told me that 80% is done at the committee level. But then the day the committee report should be tabled before the National Assembly, which was the last session. Unfortunately, the chairman was not there, and Himbo came late. And then they have to adjourn it
again.
Move it to another, then till when again. And this in access to information bill has an overriding effect over the draconian laws. If it comes to play, it stands out, like the Public Secret Official Secret Act of 1922. Probably will not have powers over the Access to Information Act. But why? Why is the National Assembly not willing to bring it on board? Because government has played their part. If government was bold enough to bring this bill before the parliament,
why would the
then why is the parliament
delay?
dragging? Exactly.
Yeah. So that's a big time issue anyway. But anyway, okay, we just remind our viewers that, of course, we are discussing about World Press Freedom Day, and of course our guest this morning is the Vice President of the Gambia Press Union, Mohamed MS Ba. We are discussing at length, of course, the state of journalism and journalism in this country, and of course the GPU have issued a brief or a short statement about that. So in that, of course, you talk about the theme locally this year, which is safety of journalists, and all that. Being an election year, in this country.
Yeah.
Now, talking about what are the plans? What is GPU doing in celebration of World Press Freedom Day in 2021?
Yeah, today we will have a press conference.
Okay.
Just by 12 noon. We are going to have a press conference where GP will issue a statement, and then commemorating the day, looking at the progress made, and also look at the current realities on the challenges, which is the abuse of journalists for the past 4 years. And then GP will also reflect and also, at least solemnize or commemorate or reflect on the fallen heroes.
Absolutely.
People like Deda Haidara, Chief Ibrahim Amane, and also, look at the recommendations, because there was a media committee review report which was presented before the Ministry of Information for consideration. And then what happened, they will tell you that the government is working on a reform, but it's too slow. It's working on a snail pace. Yeah, exactly. So those are kind of things that we will remind government that this is what this is what you promised, and these are the recommendations that obviously that is the repealing of the 1922 colonial law, which is Official Secret Act, and then also bringing in progressive laws, having a robust legal framework that will strengthen press freedom.
All right.
So basically.
Okay. Well, of course, looking at the statement here shows that GPU is concerned about the safety of journalists and security, of course, threat to journalists, especially and media houses in December, going into December's election. Now, beyond the press conference, is there anything the GPU plans to do? Because, of course, I want to believe there are so many journalists who are concerned about the safety of journalists in this country, especially, knowing where we are heading to. And, So what is the...
Yeah.
Is there anything that the union have or want to do?
Yeah. Of course. GPU has started even before this Press Freedom Day. We've started building the capacity of journalists. We've started the first phase on safety. We did a training of trainers, and then those people will also replicate that training. We have international trainers that will train, looking at other lessons learned around the globe on how journalists can save themselves, when it comes to when the matter arises. For instance, when there is a threat, how can you know the threat? How can you save yourself from problems, from troubles? Probably this was lagging, and then GPU is now strengthening it to ensure that journalists, have that mind of safety. Because journalism, you are eager to get the story, but obviously you also have to have that mind of safety around you.
Indeed,
the exit routes,
absolutely.
and also if you look at the place, you look at an event, and you know that if you have that capacity, you can understand that, wow, this place is not safe. I have to retreat or have to do one or two things to save myself. So that training is ongoing, and GP will train a lot of journalists on that. Secondly, we will also engage political parties and those in power.
Yeah, and that's a point I wanted to
no, it will.
Yeah,
it's part of our pipeline.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
because there are some journalists, as you may be aware, there
Yeah.
are concerns in our context, in this country. Sometimes you go to a press conference of political parties,
Yeah.
the environment itself is worrying.
Yeah, that's
and it's
right.
scaring.
It's a looming threat.
Yeah, exactly. So these are some of the issues that some of the journalists are worried about.
Yeah, we have to make politicians understand the importance of press. They know already,
Yeah.
and then also tell them that, devise a discussion around safety of journalists.
Yeah.
You understand, like why, what can they do as politicians? What is their responsibilities to ensure that they create a safe space, because they need the media.
Absolutely.
Whatever they want to
Yeah.
transmit to the public
Yeah, absolutely.
is obviously they call the media.
Yeah, the thing is, there's
Yeah.
no need to have all party sympathizers.
That's
or
what I'm
militants
saying.
around a press conference
Exactly.
when the executive are the only people that would send out the
And
message.
then you put them in a room that
Yeah,
there is no exit door.
Yeah, which
That's
is-
not safety.
So-
Just only one door. There is no exit route. That's not safe.
Sometimes you want to ask a question or
Yeah.
maybe critical question. You want to look around.
Exactly.
Is this safe to me to ask? Because sometimes
That's
they
it.
see it otherwise.
It's part of it. GPU will look at it, even looking at developing a guideline for press conference, or probably educate the politicians on how to probably make a safe space for journalists, because it's important.
It is indeed.
Yeah, it's very vital. And also by then journalists will be also built.
Yeah.
Their capacity rather will be
because
built
there's
around safety.
The responsibility of journalists also
Yeah.
have to come
Yeah,
in play
yeah, exactly.
here.
Yeah.
In as much as we are demanding the other
Yeah,
side, but
yeah.
journalists also have a
course,
responsibility,
they
has
have.
a role to play in this, and it's only good that GP also are cognizant of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and also journalists should understand that no story worth your life. Yeah. If you are in a situation and you know that obviously this place, I'm going to face danger,
Yeah.
it's better you just retreat and then go back to your place or find an exit route.
Yeah.
But all those things are issues, so we will engage politicians, we will engage relevant stakeholders to ensure that this thing is inculcated in them,
Yeah.
to make sure that the safety of journalists, because we've seen a lot of abuses are made during press conferences. That political press conferences,
Yeah, political
probably
rallies. Yeah.
The Meet the People's tour,
Yeah.
presidential tour, all those places are journalists, where journalists are vulnerable. Probably it might be two things. One is the politicians don't care about the journalists, the safety of journalists. Secondly, journalists themselves don't understand the importance, or they know the importance of their safety, but they don't have that capacity on how to sense danger and how to maneuver and how to move out from that danger.
Yeah.
So I think the capacity building is very important. I'm also a trainer. I'm a trained safety trainer on journalists and
Excellent.
how they exactly. So I understand these issues.
Yeah.
So basically this is the thing.
All right. Just one last thing before we get on briefly on the local language.
Yeah.
You have spoken a lot on some of the efforts GPU have done over the past years on the safety of journalists and protection of the trade itself in this country. But what would you say to those people who think still the union needs to do more, in as much as they have done, but still there are some of the issues that probably you could have done better?
Yeah. There's still room for improvement in any aspect.
Yeah.
It's like Gambia is transitioning,
Yeah.
so the media also is transitioning, and now we have bigger responsibility because we have more journalists.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So GPU is really trying to see how best we can curb, these responsibilities to ensure that the welfare of journalists are taken care of, which is number one. To ensure that there is press freedom, independence of the press is paramount, especially in this current situation. To ensure that journalists, we have more capacity building trainings for journalists. We also have more guidelines, and then we also launching the new code of ethics, which is Channel Jala Code of Ethics, which is a broader ethical policy document, which will guide journalists. And I will urge journalists to also be
take advantage.
Take advantage. That is why we also have the Media Council, which is a self-regulatory body, which is an independent body, but it was the initiative from GPU, the Gambia Press Union. But we don't want to be the judge and the jury, so at least you should have an independent body, that will retain public trust wherever the media or public thinks that the media is found wanting on ethical issues. Exactly, you just go and report, and then it will be taken care of. So I think these are things that GPU is doing, and more capacity building things.
I see you emphasizing capacity building because it's very key.
It's number one.
It's fundamental.
It's number one.
The technical know-how. And, some of the job is confined on ethical basis. So, and I think that's quite very important. As journalists, we should know that. And as much as we are demanding more of freedom and protection, safety, and all that, but also it goes with responsibility and knowing what you do,
of course,
and the limits and all that. So that's important. We have a lot more that we could have said on this day in this country. Of course, especially knowing that we are getting into a very crucial moment. Few months ahead. The elections, and the journalists have a very, very significant role to play in this. But of course, it goes with responsibility and all that. But of course, we would continue the discussion. We wouldn't hesitate to call him back anytime to discuss on the role of the media and other things in this country. Just to conclude, MS ñu waxtaan tamit ci wolof tuuti rek pour tënk waxtaan bi laata ñuy dem ñu ngi wax ci li nga xamante woon wàllum tasum xibaar ak taskati xibaar yi seen nekkin ci réew mi waaye ci àdduna bi tey mu nekk bési mun naa wax ne taskati xibaar yi ci biir réew mi nag ñu def ci jàngat gis ne am na fu ñu jógee ak fu ñu toll bi ma doon su ma la laaj rek tey di wax rek ne tey ban jàngat ngay def ci tolluwaay presse mooy taskat xibaar yi wala tasum xibaar ci réew mi ban jàngat nga ci am ci fi ñu toll ci réew mi jamono ji.
waaw jërëjëf Mr Kante am na solo pour ñu bàyyi ci xel ndaxte xam nañ ne Gambia si noteel leen jóge woon nguur bi nga xamante ne notoon na media bi journalist yi ñu bëri faatu nañ ci rey nañ leen ñeneen ñi daw nañ mooy exil ñeneen ñi ragal nañ sax pour nekk journaliste ñun time boobu ñu ngi nekkoon journaliste time boobu lañ door suñ journalisme waaye da nga gis ne sax ñun su fekkoon ne man suma maas yi toppoon naa wax yi ni kon bàyyi naa journalisme waaw yow xam nga yow tamit bokkoon nga ci yow waaw so traitin ku nekk dañ day dem sa famille ñu ne la ne waxal sa doom bi mu bàyyi journalism because gis nga ñu ngi rey nañ diw taw na so it was a difficult moment yombutoon ba pare radio si sax doo daan dégg current issues comme ñu analyse issues yu bëri
ñun si sport bi
exactly te probably yéen a ngi bëggoon a ñëw waaye comme environment bi nekkutoon foofu noonu so da nga gis ne problème la woon so da nga ragal even sa papa sax wala sa yaay dina la wane ma ne déedéet man lii naa la pour traiter la rek pour nga bàyyi journalism waaye it was so difficult during those days waaye tamit da nga gis ne after transition bi because loolu la Gambian si xeex pour ñu mun a am that freedom si lañ am li nga xamante ne mooy democratic dispensation exactly 2016 te président bi moom kàddoom wax na ne media bi fu mu nekk ni dañoo am seen taxawaayi boppa def seen liggéey comme nu mu waree mooy dinañ am seen freedom from now on président Barrow moo ko wax waaye da nga gis ne loolu yokkute am na ci ndaxte da nga gis ne radio yi bari ne télé yi yéen tam si ngeen am seen licence online media yi time boobu online moom comme lii la luñ tere la suñ la gisee sax yaa ngi bindu online tuuti sax dinañ la téye
foog ñu bàyyi la xel waaw
exactly so loolu nag problème la woon bu baax a baax am na yenn website yi sax freedom newspaper soo fa demee ñu gis ko dañ laa téye affaire la woon so léegi all those things happen nit ñi mun nañoo jël xibaar mun nañoo def lu nekk loolu space bi moom fa radio yi bari nañ waxtaan yi ci kaw nguur bi bari na ndaxte loolu moo tax media bi am pour jàpp government bi accountable mooy leeralal askan bi naka la government di doxale so loolu nag because constitution bi moo ko wax section 207 mooy ñaari téeméer ak juróom-ñaareeli bunta bi ak section 207 208 mooy constitution bi la moo sax media bi pour ñu liggéeyal askan bi
absolutely
loolu suñ ko defut kon ñu ngi yàq constitution
def am luñ dénk ay nit ñuy doxal boobu nag war nañoo rendre compte lu ñu war ne si doxalin boobu nit ñi war nañu xam naka la nekk di demee te media bi ñoom ñoo war a
media bi obviously
play rôle boobu
waaye ba pare tamit gis nañ tam suñ global press freedom index bi lii na yokkute am na ci da nga gis ne ñu ngi woon 87 last year previous years waaye léegi dem nañ 85 out of 180 countries so da nga gis ne loolu yokkute la dafa mel ni ne Gambia seen place si press freedom mu ngi yokku ci àddina si waaye buggoon nañ Gambia nekk at least si first 5 bi loolu buggoon nañ mu am because luñ dee xool mooy ndax am nga luwaa yu baax yi nga xamante ne ngay sàmma élève aaxa ak yelleefi journaliste yi ndax nit ñi ñu ngi mun a ñaxtu di wax loolu am na pour si media bi ndax media bi ñu ngi liggéey te amuñ gàllankoor mooy di leen abuse di leen not
léegi di tëj ay media house
waaw tëj nañ sax ñaari radio stations for 1 month in 4 years boobu fàtte woon naa ko wax King FM ak Home Digital FM tëjoon nañ leen fii te teguñ ko si benn loi teguñ ko si benn sarta comme xam nga sooy def dara sax su fekkoon ne sax dañ yaaxa ñu ne leen ne sarta bii ak bii lañ yaaxa loi bii ak bii lañ yaaxa te emut ci loolu luñ def mooy dañ téye ñooñu seen njiit yi ñu tëj leen ay fan yoo xam nga so loolu yëpp problème la time boobu ñun sax foogoon nañ ne loolu du amaat understand waaye since then foog naa coow bi bari woon naa after kay bàyyi nañ probably loolu du xewaat ku ñëw téye dafa nekkal lu wér moo tax ñu téye la
waaw ci lu ñu mën a dégg rek mooy donte ne yaa ngi doon wax ci yokkute yu am waaye tamit am na ay jafe-jafe yu ñoo dunda ba léegi ci système
am na waaw compared to last régime bi léegi la gën a ubbeeku ba pare noteel bi léegi la gën a wàññeeku waaw waaye da nga gis ne GPU register nañ 13 abuses mooy fukk ak ñetti abuse mooy fukk ak ñetti dañ daan exactly si kaw journaliste yi mooy ida verbal xam nga mun ngaa lii sax ma saaga la yow journaliste yaa ngi liggéey def sa liggéey nga nekk police wala nga nekk security guard nga ñëw rek maa ngi liggéey suma liggéey nga saaga ma loolu am na ñeneen ñi sax dañ laa dóor ñeneen ñi dañ leen dóor waaye du state apparatus yi rek waaye politicians yi tamit bokk nañ ci problème bi mooy ci li nga xamante ne ak seen supporters yi because lu xew yëpp ci daan bi ni ci diggante politicians yi la ak ñi nga xamante ne ñoo amee mooy ñi nga xamante ne ñooy takkadeer yi ci réew mi so loolu problème la te fooguñ ne loolu war naa mun a am ci démocratie te ci si luñ la dee lii sa attaqué mooy probably yaa ngay jël nataal wala yaa ngay def caméra wala yaa ngay def sport reportage ñu fekk la fa ñu ne la bu ko def te duñ ko dee teg ci benn sar
loolu mooy problème bi léegi te duñ la dee bëgg a déglu waaw soo ñëwee nga ne yow bàyyi li mu ne foog pour lan mu ne non doo ko def rek
doo ko def rek duñ ko te wala sax ñu saaga la ñu ne la hey xam nga yéen
soo yooyu mooy problème
la
léegi nag ci taxawaay boobu ñu bëgg a xam rek pour ñu tënka ban taxawaay la ci GPU nar a def mooy xam nañ ne am ngeen taxawaay yu bari yi nga xamante ne xew na ci diggante bi yi ngay wax ni yëpp bokk ngeen ci ñuy xeex bi ba lii mu am waaye ba léegi tamit comme am na lu des ñu am yaakaar ne taxawaay bi war naa mun a yaatu ci mbootaay bi nga xamante ni moom moo jiite journaliste yi yëpp ci réew mi mooy GPU te nga bokk ci ñi nga xam ne ñoom ñoo jiite mbootaay boobu seen taxawaay ci loolu pour gis ne kaarangay journaliste yi gannaa mun a yaatu parce que nag at mi atu sànni karta la ci réew mi élection la journaliste yi ñu war ci am taxawaay waaye ci bataaxal bi ngeen génnee sax wane ngeen ci ne am ngeen ci ay concerns ci taxawaay boobu lan la ci journaliste yi war a mun a séntu wala Gambie si gis ne yéen ñi nga xamante yéen a jiite journaliste yi def ngeen ci taxawaay bu am solo ba kilifa yi bàyyi leen xel xam ne lii lu ñu war a bàyyi xel la te dañ ko war a soolaale si seen taxawaay seen doxalin
xam nga journaliste su bokkut ci mbir boobu du ne comme leeraay bi ak kóolute bi daf dee nekk li nga xamante ne du dee dëgër comme for instance dañu wax ne safety of journalists imperative for credibility of elections ñu ngi laa wax ne safety of journalists mooy kaaraange journalist am na solo ci elections mooy ci li nga xamante ne mooy kóolute
mooy tax
nit ñi xel dal ndaxte bu fekkee ne let's say IEC def na elections media bi wanewuñ results bi nit ñaa ngi ko dégg ku nekkaa ngay dégg ku nekk dina wax lu ko ne dina wax ne ñii mbaa sàccuñ elections su fekkee ne tam political parties yi ñoom ñu ngi dem campagne media bi génnewut ko kan moo ko dégg so faaw ñu am media bi fu nekk ñu xool ndax ñii lu ñoo def ndax askan wi gis nañ ci seen boppa ndax njëriñu askan wi la ndaxte politicien tamit am nañ followers yu bari mun nañoo def loo xamante ne dafa isi safaan ci réew mi te ñaanuñu loolu yàlla so foog media bi nekk fa pour mu dimbale askan wi ñu xam exactly segga yëf yi so da nga gis ne ñun dooroon nañ lii sax balaa élection sax balaa 2021 pour tàggat journaliste yi pour ñu xam ñoom naka la ñu aaree seen boppa ndaxte am na solo gis nañ ne loolu problème la journaliste dina mun a gis fii fenn comme mu gis ne ok fii nit ñi bari nañ probablement xamut naka la moo aaree boppam am na ñoo xam ne xamuñ da nga wax man journaliste laa rek waaw jaral na ma lu ne exactly
man exemple boobu 3 years jot na xamoon naa ci dara ñu ngi fa woon waaye affaire bu mu jaxasoo daal dama ne waa ji ñu seet safety mu ne ma ne ko ne xaaral man safety force
waaw moo tax nañ ñeneen ñi dugal si problème
si lañ tasaaroo
moo tax am na ñoo xam ne dugal nañ ci problème si
absolutely waaw
so da ngaa gis ne loolu yëpp problème la waaye soo foog nga xamal journaliste yi fan ngay lii soo ko gisee naka ngay demee wala suñ leen dugalee si néeg boo xam ne amut exit door fan nga war a taxaw fan ngeen war a naka nga war a taxawee because da ngaa gis ne léegi-léegi journaliste bi dafa dugga si néeg boo xam ne benn bunta moo fa nekk nga dem nga dugga si digga nga nekk si digga foo xamante ne yow problème su amee doo mun a génn
ak xel bu dal nag
ak xel bu exactly
ak xel bu dal nga fàtte ne yow am na fi nga nekk yi nga wax ne nga war a bàyyi sa xel
loolu xam-xam la nag loolu xam-xam la foog ñu xam ko xam-xam la probablement am na yoo xam ne yaa ngi koo def mais bi amuloo xam-xam bi waaye boo amee xam-xam bi di nga xam ne lii laa war a def te di nga safe at least 80% di nga safe ba pare naka laa war a demee balaa maa dem kan laa war a waxtaanal lan laa war a def ndax sa jaral na ma am su fekkee ne aw ma moto taxi driver ma xam ak yooyu yëpp da nga ko dee prépare yooyu yëpp si xam-xam la safety of journalist so am na solo pour ñu bàyyi ci xel comme security nuñ dee def rek ñoom nañ dee seen 5 and 10 yi dañ ko dee use su ñoo lii nuñ ko dee xoolee naka ngay scanner affaire so loolu yëpp xam-xam la so loolu GP ñu ngi ko def pour tàggat nit ñi ba pare dinañ waxtaan ak political parties yi tamit naka la ñoo defee seen press conference yi pour ñu aar li nga xamante ne mooy
dañ soxla wante waaw that relationship dafa nekk ñun soxla nañ waaye ñoom tamit dañ soxla media bi
of course
ñu leen so that common understanding dafa war a nekk pour jàmm ji dox mu nekk kàddu yi nga xamante ne mooy yu am solo just pour ñu tëj rek for finally na la bàyyi loolu ñu nga may sa final message concluding remarks to the press men and women in this country, but also to the Gambian country as large. Just allow you, as the Vice President of the GPU, what final message would you have for us in the media? Of course, we know we have a responsibility and we have a role to play equally. Like I said earlier, so it's a day that we are so much happier, but also it goes with responsibility and so much that we should be ready to make sure that we also keep on doing the work that we do. In that note, Mr. Ba, thank you for coming, but I will just allow you to send out your concluding message.
Yeah, journalists should know that they are doing service to the people, to the public, to the masses, and it is a constitutional requirement. It is a mandate given to them by the Constitution, Section 272.
The law of the land.
Exactly, which is the supreme law. To know that they are very important.
Indeed.
And also, they also have to know that the profession has code of ethics. You have code of ethics. Today we are launching it, the Cherno Jalo Code of Ethics. Each and every journalist should read that, should try and access the code. Probably it will be downloaded on GPU, on the GPU website. it will also be available, some copies with the GPU. So let journalists try to get that so that they can know exactly what to do without flouting the code, the ethics. And also, finally, we are saying to our heroes, that who were killed rather by state apparatus. We're saying, may their soul rest in peace.
Amen.
And then we also, to the government, let them repeal some of all of the draconian laws, and also bring the access to information bill for the public.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming, and I know the GPU will keep on the fight, will keep pushing. On that note, Ahmed Mesbah, thank you so very much. He is the Vice President of the Gambia Press Union, the umbrella body of journalists in this country. We were discussing on the World Media Freedom Day, and of course we are also looking at it and the context of this in the Gambia. So we will keep up the discussion. As he said, GPU will hold a press conference in about 2 hours' time, and then we would, of course, bring you more details on that in our subsequent news edition. Once again, thank you for joining us, and we will take a short break and then bring you the newspaper review before we finally part ways for today. So stick around, don't go away. We will be back right after this. Star GSM Electronics special Ramadan promotion starting from April 4th to 15 on all our Star home appliances such as two-way gas cooker, microwaves, washing machines, stand fan rechargeable that can last for 8 hours, different stand freezers, deep freezers from 140 to 400 liters, blenders, stand and ceiling fans, solar panels ranging from 150 to 600 watts, different types of solar batteries, stabilizer ranging from 500 watts to 2500 watts, originally flat screens from 17 to 65 inches. All our items are durable, energy saving, modern and 2 years warranty. Buy our Star deep or stand freezers 140 liters for only $10,000. Visit our distribution center at Star GSM at Westfield Highway opposite OJ Junction, Talindi Market, or Tabokoro Traffic Light, or call 700-2494. At Star GSM, our appliances are original, durable, modern, and energy saving. Star GSM Electronics.
dafa ne ci man coono di dem dëkk ba dëkka rawatina ba foofa ca Sénégal pour jëndi daal jeex na fii ci biir réew mi ak Stroll Company sa jaaxle jeex na waaw di leen defar bépp xeeti daal te itam dinay dëgër rafet ci ay njëkk yu yomb compagnie bi lee di Stroll dinañ la defaral daala aso bi fekkee ne da nga nekk ci political party bugg nga nuroo leeg say waay ngay dem foofa ca Stroll Company ñi daal di la defaral daala bu dëgër baax te rafet moo xam itam da nga am xew bugg sa yére nuroog sa daala demal seeti ñii di Stroll Company te emuñ ci loolu dinañ la defaral sa daala si saasi boo demee ñi nata la nga toog wax leen li nga bëgga ñi defaral la ko te itam di leen defar daala si wholesale wala retail seeti leen foofa sa Suncu Alaaji te nag lu ci gën a neex mooy doomi Gambian moo ko moom teg ci di dimbale ay ndaw pour ñi am fu ñuy xëyee seeti leen foofa ca Suncu Alaaji ca Kunkujang Johnson boo demee rek di nga gis seen table bi nga daal di leen dem seeti sa xol nee nga am sa daale boo yàggami bét mun ngaa nemmeeku seen website bi si www.strollshops.com wala nga oo ñu si 7473692 wala 7150195 ak Stroll Company sa jaaxle jeex na ci dem beeg dëkk bi ci daala kese.
Indeed tells you where we are heading to now, and that is the final part of this edition. That is the news review. We will now want to say quickly that, of course, we should have report. I think that would be interesting to us about finally it's barely 3 months after launching the party. So we'll discuss more on that tomorrow. Just to give you, of course, a bit of we will do that. But President, leader of the party, and the list goes. We are here with MC for the news review.
How are you?
So, Lonya Amaltai, newspaper. What do we have? How many papers?
Good morning to all the viewers out there watching GMA this morning on iAfrica TV. Today we have 2 papers, which is the Standard newspaper and also Foria. But first we'll go with Foria newspaper, which says unionists ask government to support workers affected by COVID-19 lockdown. Mayday, Dock Maritime Workers Union seeks for justice. Janjambure backs Gambians in diaspora to participate in forthcoming elections. Bissau Guinean in police custody for allegedly giving false information to police. Transport union boss calls on government to establish car parks in every region. President Barrow pledges government's commitment to OMVG. Pura imposes fine of 300,000 against Dr. Cisse. And the editorial this morning is, will it relapse from coma to death, the 2020 Constitution Promulgation Bill? And the question of the day is, are Gambians really ready to understand the Jammeh era? So this is what the Foria newspaper says this
interesting
morning.
Headlines, by the way, on the
Yeah.
Doi newspaper. Yeah, so we're going to pick 1 or 2 of their stories.
Sure.
And, yeah, quickly.
We'll just take 2 of them.
Okay.
And which says Gambian unionist Ibrahim Gaba Cisse, who served as the Secretary General of the Gambia Workers Association, has asked the government to support workers affected by the COVID-19 lockdown. Yeah, bii nag dafa nekk loo xamante comme ñi nga xamante ne ñoo jiite wàllu mbootaay liggéeykat si Gambie bi fii ñoom daal ñaxtu government ni Adama Barrow bi pour ñu dimbale li nga xamante ne ñooy liggéeykat yi ñi nga xamante ne ñoo gënoon a fees ñoo gënoon a sonn si mbas mi pour ñu government bi jàppale leen daal si ni ñu ko mën whether in cash or kind.
Absolutely, parce que nag mbas mi tax nañu bari ñàkk seen liggéey ba place yu bari dañ tëjoon mu nekk li nga xamante ne mooy ay jafe-jafe yu bari ñu bari dunda ci réew mi so dina am solo xam nga samedi moo nekkoon 1st of May boobu nag bési liggéeykat yi la woon pour ñu tam ñu mun a def taxaw seetlu seen biir ak yu mel noonu so kaddu bu am solo la gannaaw boobu ñu wax ci
waaw ñu dem Janjanbureh rek ñoom ñi nga xamante ne ñu ngi back lii di diaspora voting bi ñoom nag wax nañ ne ñi nekk si diaspora bi ay Gambians lañ te am nañ kaddu tamit si réew mi so war nañ leen naa mun a dimbale ñu seet naka la ñoom tam naka la ñu mun a voter naka la ñu mun a amee kaddu si léegi li nga xamante ne mooy doxalini réew mi te ñu ngi wax ne nag comme matawul daal fan la gaa munti nekk as long as they are Gambians and also they are in the diaspora they can still have a voice in our electoral processes.
loolu waa Janjanbureh ñoo ko
loolu waa Janjanbureh ñoo ko
su la neexee nga ne waa Georgetown su la jeexee nga ne ma nga ne gars yi waa Makati ay la ñoom rek ñu am dëkk bu am ñetti tur te benn dëkk bi la ñoom tamit boole nañ seen baat ci yëf yi xam nga nag yëf yi diaspora voting bi dafa xew temps yi coow li bari na waaye National Assembly Committee bi ñu ngi wër pour wax ak Gambian si ñi nga xam ne ñoo responsible ci election bill bi pour ñu xam Gambian si tamit naka lañ ko gisee balaa ñuy matal affaire yi balaa ñuy ko ci boole su ko defee ñoom bëgg nañ gars yi bokk ci gannaaw
bu jógee Foria nag ñu ñëw Standard newspaper ñoom seen story bi gën a first mu ne NPP will prefer death to shame in December election says President Barrow. Another presidential aspirant emerges. Humanity First gives over $7 million in material to Gambia's COVID-19 fight. Navy arrests criminal gang in Tangier Forest. And 2 suspects arrested with the help of CCTV footage. ñoom Standard newspaper nag tey lii lañ indi so bu si gën a fës la ñoo commencé mooy President Adama Barrow has declared that his National People's Party NPP would rather take death than shame in the December 4th presidential elections. NPP is not taking the December presidential election lightly. We are ready for anything as far as the elections are concerned, and when you are about to start a war, there are 2 things to bear in mind: death to shame. You either take the death or shame, and we, the NPP, would rather take death than shame.
acca mu ngi noonu boobu moom bi élection bi kon affaire gars yi pare nañ de ku ne mu ngee bàkku nag
waaw ku ne ngaa ngee bàkku nag
lamb ji sajja gudde waaye xaw ma fu nekk ni ñu ngi si seen waajtaay ak yooyu
moom nag mu ne moom NPP daal moom de moo leen gënal ñu ñàkk li nga xamante ne mooy December election mooy nekk election bi
mooy gàcce gi daal ñoom ñu dee moo leen gënal gàcce
waaw moo leen gënal gàcce bi daal
parce que mu ne booy dugg ci xeex ñaar moo ci ne da ngay dugg pour nga pare ci dee nga am ndam wala nga jël ci defit mooy gàcce gi te ñoom nag ñu dee moo leen gënal gàcce gi waaw loolu nag wax la nag dégg la laaj waaw
nekk daal des na si Gambie ni decide daal
waaw ñu ngi decide ak te nee na ñoom pare nañ acca mu ngi noonu ñu jeexale ko si story Navy bi mu ne the Gambian Navy over the weekend arrested a gang of suspected criminals comprising mainly of young men and some women from their hideout deep in the Tangier Forest Reserve for bat watching. According to the sources, Navy conducted a raid on the beach leading to the arrest and discovery of the criminals and their sanctuary in the forest. ñii nag dafa nekk police maanaam Navy bi during their patrol they've come across to a gang. They've arrested some people who who have a hideout in the forest. They have their cooking items. They have everything in them, and they will program everything where they have their weapons. So they will just go out and do their heinous crimes and then come back. But they've been apprehended by the Navy and they've been handed over to the police for further investigations. Fantastic. That's a great move there. They have to be more proactive in their duties, and I think this is one of the things that Gambians would want to hear, because there have been so many cases that has been really disturbing to hear, I can say. But
so many crimes.
Crimes has been on the increase of recent, so I think the police also need to do more and step up their efforts. MC, thank you very much.
Yep. This is all that I have for you in today's edition of the Newspaper Review.
All right, and thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
We'll be back tomorrow, inshallah.
Inshallah, we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye-bye from me.
All right. MC, if you like, see you back the program. And you have from on the Standard newspaper, and I said that the executive members has been revealed. President Barrow is the party.
The pride we take in our brand, the work we put into constantly change the landscape and elevate real estate in the Gambia, it's compared to none. From inception, our goal was to add value to the beautiful Gambian landscape. That's why we are proud innovators of community estates. Kololi Sands is an exceptional piece of work, tailored for ultimate convenience and luxury, to bring you an element of finesse that is rare but unique in its own. This is also our pride and joy, and we welcome you to the exquisite beauty right here in Kololi and right here on the waterfront. Kololi Sands, feel the ocean breeze at your doorstep.
Hello! There's a new update from your favorite GSM operator, AfriCell.
For all of you that have struggled to buy cash power beyond $7,000, AfriCell has done it again. The limit to buy cash power is now up to $30,000. Oh yes, $30,000.
Buy all the cash power you want from your AfriMoney account by dialing *777#.
Where AfriCell goes, nobody dares to follow.
It's an amazing offer. AfriMoney just got way better. the threshold for cash in and cash out on your AfriMoney has been increased.
Where it used to be 10,000 per transaction, now it has been increased to 30,000. Meaning, your AfriMoney account, you can now withdraw and deposit up to $30,000 at once.
Cashing in and out just got 3 times easier. For more info, call 777.
Where AfriCell goes, nobody dares to follow.
Tey moom dama ne naa ñëw xool si sa tabax gi.
Loolu nag kontaan naa si bu baax.
Seen nag yow kontaan nga waaye man kontaanuma ndax bul fàtte ne man ak yow ñoo bokkoon nekk bitim réew.